Alrighty. All right. Thank you guys for joining me. I had to switch over because something happened with Periscope. I'm not sure what happened. But thank you guys for rejoining me. Thank you so much for rejoining me. Thank you guys. Thank you guys for joining me. I don't know what happened with Periscope, but we're just going to go with Facebook. So if you guys lost it, come on back. I appreciate you guys that were with me online just a few seconds ago. So as you come on, do me a quick favor and press the share button so we can get everybody else back on. Thank you guys so much for rejoining me tonight. Thank you. I'm going to give you guys just a minute because I just switched over from Periscope to Facebook. So I'm going to give you guys just a second to join me back. Thank you guys so much. Thank you guys for joining me again. I appreciate it. I'm not sure what happened to my Periscope, but thank you guys for joining. Wow, thank you guys that are joining. I appreciate it. Again, as you come on, hit the share button. I appreciate you guys so much. Thank you. Thank you guys that are joining me tonight. I appreciate it. Thank you guys that are coming back on. Thank you. Thank you guys that are sharing. I'm going to give you just a minute for everybody else to get back online because I know I just switched over. You make sure. Alrighty. All right, so I'll let everybody else come back on. Let me just give a quick recap about what we're doing. This week, we're talking about me versus me, and we're looking at the man in the mirror, and we are making decisions to deal with ourselves. We are making decisions to deal with our issues. We're making decisions that we are not going to be trying to transfer our issues onto somebody else, but we've decided that we're going to look at ourselves and deal with those things that are causing us not to be the best person that we can be, and that's causing us not really to live up to the potential that we can. Now, a lot of us don't like to show the things on the inside of us that we struggle with because we don't like people to know that there are parts of us that are damaged. We are not whole. We're not perfect. We're not as great as sometimes we like to project ourselves to be. And while it's good to show confidence, I am always saying, listen, make sure that you're confident. Make sure that you're putting your best foot forward. However, sometimes when you don't address those issues, those things in your lives that are causing you torment mentally and emotionally, you're going to run into trouble because sooner or later, they're going to come out. And so this week, I have decided that we are going to deal with ourselves. We're not going to transfer our issues onto other people. We're not going to blame our circumstances and our situations for where we are. We are going to figure out a way to face ourselves and the issues on the inside of us. And so this week, I've decided to take 5 days and I've decided to take 5 issues that we deal with privately and secretly. And I've decided to say, listen, I'm going to be transparent and say, listen, here are 5 things, big issues that I deal with. And I know if I'm dealing with them, I'm not the only person that's dealing with them. And so I've decided that I'm going to just be transparent and I'm going to put myself out there because there might be somebody else that's saying, listen, secretly, I deal with these issues. Mentally, I struggle. Emotionally, I am having a hard time with these things, but it's not really something that I'm able to really talk about. It's not really something that I want to put out there because I don't want to be judged. I don't want to be labeled. And so what we do a lot of times is we hide them. We hide our issues. We create a facade. We put on this mask. We say, let me take the things that people say about me. Oh, she's stuck up, or oh, she has a bad attitude, or oh, she thinks she's all that. We'll take the things that people say about us, and then we'll say, well, what do they want to see from us? And then we'll just create this new person, and that's who we put out there. And we don't even know that we are presenting somebody that's not even us to people, that one day we'll wake up, and we won't even know who we are. We won't even recognize the person that we see in the mirror. We will be in a place where we're so fake in artificial with people that we'll never get to a place where we're able to deal with the real us. So I've decided for the next 5 days, I'm going to take 5 issues and I'm going to tell the truth about how those issues affect me personally and how they cause war on the inside of my mind, on the inside of my emotions, in hopes that somebody's going to say, you know what? I deal with that same issue. And so tonight I called it round 1, me versus me. The first issue that I want to deal with is inadequacy. And I defined it. I said that, first of all, the king of pop, Michael Jackson, wrote a song, or he put out a song that was called Man in the Mirror. And he said, if you really want to make a change, you've got to look at yourself and you've got to say, wait a minute, what are my issues? Not what somebody did to me, not what am I dealing with, because I wouldn't have dealt with that if they had not have done that. What is it about me that I am struggling with? Because if I can ever get to the root and stop looking at the symptoms, stop looking at my actions, what I'm doing, and figure out what's causing me to act like that, if I can ever get down to what's really going on, I'll be able to fix some things. So I want to talk about inadequacy, and I had some definitions. Inadequacy is when you feel as though you are deficient, when you feel as though you're failing, when you feel as though you're incapable, you don't feel like you have any substance to you, when you feel like you're unqualified, and the biggest thing is when you feel like you are not enough. You just feel like no matter who you are, what you have, somewhere it's not enough. Somewhere this is not it. Who I am, what I have, what I can do is not enough. And these things cause feelings of inadequacy. And now let me talk about inadequacy because it creates, I see that we're having some technical difficulties and I want to make sure that everybody's able to hear. Thank you guys that are coming on and sharing. Thank you guys so much. I see you guys coming on and sharing. Thank you guys. I see some of you, some new people coming on. Thank you guys. Make sure you're sharing this video. So we're talking about inadequacy. And so like I said, it's when you really feel like deep down inside, you are not enough. That can cause a war on the inside of you. And it's one of those secret wars where people look at your outside, they look at your demeanor, and they really don't know what's really going on. And so a lot of times, like I said, we don't like to put ourselves out there because there's a fear of being judged. There's a fear of somebody saying, oh my goodness, she's dealing with that. I wouldn't have ever thought that, because she seems to have it all, or he seems to be all that. Why would they be dealing with anything? And so a lot of times we hide those issues because we don't want to be judged. But if we never learn how to face them, if we never learn how to look in the mirror and say, check, you have an issue, or listen, dude, get this together, we'll always be playing catch up. Now, I'm going to talk about what areas we feel inadequate in. And there are about 4 areas that I pinpointed that it causes us to feel inadequate. For those of you all that are parents, you can feel inadequate as a parent. Now, a lot of times what happens is we will take personal responsibility. And I'm not talking about the responsibility of feeding our children and making sure they're safe and making sure they're okay. But we will take responsibility when something messes up with them. We will feel inadequate. We will feel like there has to be something wrong with me, because if I'm doing all I can do and they're messing up and they're a reflection of me, apparently there's something in me that's inadequate. Let me give you an example. Say your child flunked a grade or flunked a class. You won't just say, well, maybe the teacher, or maybe they didn't get the concept. The teacher is teaching quickly, or maybe that's just one of those subjects that they struggle in. We'll immediately say, that was something I did. You know what? I'm being selfish. I didn't spend enough time with them. I didn't give them enough materials to study with. There's something I didn't do. And all of a sudden, we'll start to say, well, if my child can't pass, then something must be wrong with me. If my child isn't doing well in school, then somewhere I'm not just a bad parent, we'll say I'm a bad person. There is something not right about me. If our child goes through a behavioral issue, if they're acting out in school, in class, we'll say, wait a minute, they're acting out. This must be about me. Something I did wrong to this child, or something I'm not raising them right. Maybe I'm not loving them enough. Maybe I'm not giving them enough attention. And what we'll do is we'll turn that into meaning there must be something wrong with me. Not just as a parent. We will look at our child, and if they have a learning disability, if there's something they're not able to grasp quickly, we won't just say, well, maybe that's something beyond my control and I'm going to do what I can to help them. We'll allow ourselves to feel inadequate and say, why should I even try to raise this child? I can't do a good job with this child, because if I were a good person, they wouldn't have this learning disability. They wouldn't have this behavioral issue. They wouldn't be flunking. It has to be my issue. And so as a parent, we can feel inadequate. And it's not just even with smaller kids. There are older ones of us that are older and have older kids. And let's say your child went left. They got off the straight and narrow path. They went to jail. They had a child out of wedlock. They got pregnant in high school. Something that will say, wait a minute, that must be me. I must not be the person I need to be, because if I was, my child would not have went through that. And so there's that feeling of inadequacy starts getting created on the inside of us. We'll start thinking to ourselves, then I must not be who I'm supposed to be. I must not be as good. I'm looking at these things. I don't deserve this happiness because my child went to jail. I don't deserve, to have this luxury or to have this degree because, my child got pregnant. My child didn't do well in school. And we will allow ourselves to feel inadequate as a person because we're deflecting the issues that our children might be struggling with on ourselves, and we'll allow ourselves to deal with inadequacy instead of saying, wait a minute, there's a chance that everybody has issues that they deal with. Nobody gets the concept right all the time, every time. So let me just not take that personal because my child made a mistake, because my child flunked, because my child got pregnant, because my child dropped out of school. I don't have to feel inadequate as a person just because my child had some issues. And so a lot of times inadequacy is created because we're looking at our children and we're deciding that there must be something wrong with us. There must be something we didn't do in ourselves. We must not be good enough, because if we were, our children wouldn't be who they are. And so every time we see our child do something negative, every time there's a bad trait that comes out with them, every time there's an issue, we automatically say, let me get depressed. Let me feel inadequate because obviously it's about me. Obviously I did something wrong and I am not good enough because my child would have been better had I been adequate enough. But that is all a lie. And we are going to dismiss and dismantle all of these false perceptions about ourselves by the end of this broadcast. Now, the second way that we feel inadequate is as it relates to our significant other. And that could be a spouse, your mate, your fiance, your boyfriend, your girlfriend, your wife, anybody. Sometimes we create feelings of inadequacy because of how the relationship with somebody else ended, or what happened, or what is happening in that relationship. Inadequacy comes out, especially if you were cheated on. And again, I'm saying me versus me. You can't fix what you don't face, because this isn't anything that we want to broadcast on Facebook. We'll tell everything else. We'll wear t-shirts that say everything else, but we're not going to raise our hand and say, I was cheated on, I was walked out on, I was left high and dry. That's not something we always want to advertise. However, it creates feelings of inadequacy on the inside of us, because somewhere we're saying, had I been good enough, they would not have cheated on me. Had I been pretty enough, had I been fine enough, had I been sexy enough, had I been adventurous enough, had I been financially sound enough, that person would not have cheated on me. We will take all the responsibility from that other person. We won't say they cheated because they were being low down, or they cheated because they just didn't want to tell me they didn't love me anymore, or they cheated because this is what they've always done and I just happen to be the next victim. We will take that burden onto ourselves and say, wait a minute, I must not have been good enough because that person cheated on me. So now I have feelings of inadequacy. Now when I look at myself, I can't even accept the compliment because I'm saying, no, if that were the case, that person would not have done me like that. If that were the case, then they would not have walked away. If that were true, I wouldn't be divorced right now, raising these children by myself. And so we will allow relationships and how somebody else did us to create feelings of inadequacy inadequacy on the inside of us. And again, these are things we will walk around secretly. We can look good, we can smell good, we can sound good, but somewhere in the back of our head, there's a little voice that's telling us, hey, guess what? You're not qualified. Hey, guess what? They don't really want you. Hey, guess what? You really don't have what it takes. That little nagging voice in the back of your mind will keep trying to create something in you to tell you you're not good enough. As soon as you try to get happy, something will remind you, well, last time they left you, or don't forget, how people usually do you. And all of a sudden you'll start feeling like, wait a minute, I'm not adequate because that person walked away from me, because that person cheated on me, because that person did me wrong. And again, we will define ourselves because of how somebody else did. Thank you guys, the new people that are joining. Thank you guys so much that are joining. If you will, do me a favor, hit that share button and allow other people to come in on the broadcast. Once again, you guys that are rejoining, thank you guys. Hit the share button. I'm going to go back and recap. We're talking about inadequacy, that feeling of not being good enough, that feeling of feeling like we don't have enough substance, that even though we look good, something in the back of our head is still telling us that we're not who we are and we're not all we're cracked up to be. And so we really can't walk in our kingdom business. We really can't do what we need to do because something is holding us back. And that's that little nagging voice in the back of our minds that's saying you're not good enough. You don't have what it takes. You don't have any substance. Come back off of that. You're not who you are. And again, because we're defining ourselves, I said the first thing that creates inadequacy in us is every time our children make mistakes, or any time that our children flunk, or if they got pregnant, or if they went to jail, or if they, have a developmental or behavioral issues, we'll feel inadequate because we would feel like had we been a better person, had we been great in who we were supposed to be, they would not have dealt with that. They would not have had to deal with that. We won't say that just might be their path. That just might be what they have to go through. Those might be things outside of my control. No. We'll take that to heart and say, no, it must be something wrong with me. And we will carry a burden that was not meant for us to bear. And now, along with all the other issues we have, now we're going to add that our children's issues onto us to make us feel inadequate. The next thing that I said is how people do us in relationships causes us to feel inadequate. If they cheated on us, if they walked out on us, if they left us high and dry, we'll say it wasn't because they were low down. It wasn't because they just liked to dibble and dabble. No, it was because I wasn't pretty enough. I wasn't handsome enough. I wasn't financially sound enough. I wasn't confident enough. I wasn't spontaneous. I wasn't sexy enough. We'll put it on us. And once again, here's yet another burden that we'll put on ourselves unfairly. And we will walk around and we will burden ourselves. And we will try to create this facade of happiness. But in the back of our minds, we're thinking to ourselves, I'm not adequate. Something about me isn't right. Or they would not have done me like that. Now, the third thing that creates inadequacy, and I'm going to speak to the men, and ladies, I'm going to tell you, I have gotten so many emails and inboxes and direct messages from women that have told me that when their husband or fiance, boyfriend, baby daddy, whenever he went through something where he lost a job or where he wasn't making the money that he used to make, all of a sudden he started feeling inadequate. And men respond to inadequacy much different than women respond to it. And so we'll go back and we'll trace the place where the men started talking to them in a rough kind of way, being a little mean, or that's when the women were saying the men were tipping out. Well, some of that had to do with, as a man who is the provider, or who, traditionally is the person that's the foundation, when something happens that takes away their identity, and a lot of times men identify with what they do, their ability to provide, their ability to be the head. Sometimes when there's a loss of a job or a loss of income, or even when you start making more money, sometimes they start dealing with feelings of inadequacy. And a lot of times, because they're not really capable of articulating or saying to us, I just feel like I'm not who I used to be because I was, attaching my worth to what I was able to do. Now they're acting out in other ways. And so what'll happen is they'll think we're looking at them with disappointment. Where you used to be the hero, now all of a sudden I'm saying I got to do all the work. I got to do that. And so a lot of times men will have inadequacies, and instead of dealing with it, they'll turn to alcohol, or they'll turn to drugs, or again, other women, because there's a feeling of inadequacy. inadequacy. My point of all of this is inadequacy. If you don't check it, if you don't come face to face with inadequacy, it will cause you to act out in ways you would never normally do. It will cause issues, and you'll be saying, well, where does this issue come from? It has to be me. No, it can be rooted in inadequacy. That feeling that you're just not good enough, that you're not qualified, you don't have what it takes. Inadequacy is one of those things that I call the hell on the inside of us. And if you don't check it, if you don't face it, if you don't denounce it, it will cause issues. Now, here are some things commonly that cause us to feel inadequate. You know, I was just thinking of a list of things, either I went through personally or when I dealt with other people. Here are some things, because a lot of times we'll disassociate ourselves with stuff because we'll say, oh, that's not me. I don't have issues with inadequacy. But sometimes you'll hear something that hits home and you'll say, whoa, wait a minute. I did deal with that. That could actually be the root of my problem. So I'm going to go through a few. Sometimes, if you didn't graduate high school, or if you didn't go to college, weren't able to go to college, or didn't graduate from college, and the people around you have, it'll cause you to feel inadequate. You'll say, you know, they were able to complete this and they're on their 3rd degree and I haven't even went back to school for mine. That will cause you to feel inadequate because you didn't get that degree or you didn't finish school. It will cause feelings of inadequacy. Another one, if you were not able to have children and you wanted children, you know, you had issues and you said, wait a minute, you know, look at my family, look at my friends, look at my best friend, look at my cousin. They have children and they're happy and their little families together. And here it is, just me, and I don't have anybody. I can't have children, or I wasn't able to have any children. It can cause feelings of inadequacy. It can make you think, well, maybe I wasn't good enough to be a mom. Maybe I didn't have what it takes, you know, to bear children. Those things, because these are things, secret things. These are not things, like I said earlier, that we're going to put on a t-shirt. These are not things that we're going to post on Facebook. Hey, I'm barren, I can't have children. Hey, guess what? I didn't graduate from high school. Hey, guess what? I still don't have a degree. These are things that we deal with secretly and privately that cause torment on the inside of us because we don't want people to know that we are damaged. It causes feelings of inadequacy. Another one, if you have to have some kind of outside dependence, if you have to depend on somebody else for something, you start to feel inadequate. If you had to go back home with your mom, listen, when I got divorced, me and all 3 of my children had to go back home and live with my mama. We had to start back over. I dealt with feelings of inadequacy because I said, oh my goodness, I didn't expect to be in this place at this age dealing with this. So apparently there must be something wrong with me. These are feelings of inadequacy. They can cause you, if you've ever had to deal with government assistance and you said, you know, again, we don't want to put this on a t-shirt. I'm on food stamps. I have to be on Section 8. And I'm not talking about anything to be judgmental about. I'm talking about things that I have dealt with in my life. It causes you to feel inadequate. You start saying to yourself, what am I doing wrong that I'm not in a place where I'm as sufficient as somebody else? And you'll start to take that, and if you don't check it, you'll start getting depressed. You'll start feeling bad about yourself. You'll start saying, you know what, I'm not worth it because I can't get myself together. Another thing, if you don't have a career, if you're working somewhere where you feel like other people, they're in their prime, they're having a career, and you feel like, you know what, I don't have a career yet, I'm still working just a 9 to 5, it will cause you to feel inadequate. These things will cause you to feel as though, not that the situation, something had to do with the situation, but you'll feel like in and of yourself, you're not enough. And so you have to go back and check, what are these things that are causing me to feel inadequate? If you had to go, like I just said, I had to go back home when I got divorced and live with my mama. It played against my mind. It played against my emotions. Who do you think you are, coming up in here, rolling up with this great job at Habitat, but you don't even have your own place. You don't even have your own house. Your car is your mom. That's your mom's car. Those things will cause you to feel inadequate. It will cause you to feel like you're not enough. You're not qualified. You don't have what it takes. And those things will war on the inside of you. You'll project them onto other people. You'll be mean and you'll be stuck up and acting funny, but the real war is going on the inside of you. A lot of those things. If you flunked publicly, and this is a big one of the things that really will cause you to feel inadequate is if whatever you dealt with was made public. Now, I just said that the feelings of inadequacy because of things we go through, now we won't put those out there. We won't say, didn't graduate. I'm wearing a t-shirt that said, guess what? I didn't graduate. I flunked out of high school. I still don't have a degree. I wasn't able to have any children. I had to move outside with my mom. I'm on government assistance. We won't put that stuff out there because, again, we don't want anybody to know that we have issues that cause us not to feel whole. But what will cause us to really feel inadequate is if our issues ever got to the people and they saw them and there was nothing that we can do about it. Now, I'm going to give you some examples. If you ever had a baby out of wedlock, let me put my hand up, and everybody knew you were pregnant, and you had to walk around for 9 months, and your mistake was evident. People saw it. You had to live through that. You had to see people's judgmental looks. You had to hear the whispers. You had to deal with what they were saying. Did their mama thought they were all that and she ended up pregnant? What was that? Feelings of inadequacy because your issues that you might have been able to hide. Oh, no, this was one that was brought in the public eye. If there was a scandal that you were involved with and it got exposed and everybody saw it, not something that you could hide away, but if you ever was in the middle of a scandal and everybody found out about it and every day you had to live with it, that causes feelings of inadequacy. Why? Because now when you're talking to people, you can't even really take them at face value because that little thing on the back, in the back of your mind is saying, I wonder if they're judging me by what happened to me. I wonder if they know that I had an abortion when I was in high school. I wonder, what about when I got pregnant and I actually had to have the baby and they judged my family? What about if you went to jail and you're saying, this is something I couldn't hide. Everybody knew. It was in the paper. People text about it. They posted it. These are things, public humiliation, public shame, public scandal will cause us to feel inadequate because now we can't deny it. We can't hide behind it. We can't put it up and deal with it privately on our own time. Now we have to deal with the fact that everybody knows about it, and it will cause us to feel inadequate. And when we feel inadequate, we won't be as bold as we could. When we feel inadequate, we won't face things or go after things that we normally would because we're walking around with this shame. We're saying everybody knows about it. Everybody knows I dropped out of high school. Everybody knows my teenager's pregnant and getting ready to have a baby. And so now everybody knows I'm not good enough. Everybody knows I'm not a good mom. Everybody knows I had to go back and live with my dad. Everybody knows that my car got repo. Everybody knows, that I was standing in line for assistance, and we will feel inadequate because we're looking and we're judging ourselves by what other people see. Now, and I'm almost done. What inadequacy creates? Well, it creates defensiveness. I'm going to tell you how you know that you deal with inadequacy, because if you're always defensive, if you're always sitting on ready to have a clap back in case somebody says something wrong to you, ready to counteract what somebody has to say, if you ever have those feelings of defensiveness, you could be dealing with inadequacy. Because when you feel inadequate, you're walking around feeling like somebody is going to expose those things about you that's not great. Somebody's going to tell on you and put those things. Everybody else thinks she's good at work. Everybody else thinks she's great at church. But there's somebody that knows you're inadequate. And so you're defensive when you talk to them. You're defensive. You're waiting in case you need a clap back because you're saying, I can't let my guard back down with them because they're going to expose me. And now I'm going to be exposed and I got to have a clap back ready. So you're always on the defense. The second thing inadequacy creates is anxiousness. You're always waiting for the other shoe to drop. You can't enjoy where you are now. You can't enjoy your relationship. You can't enjoy, the good things you have because you're saying, no, that's not going to last long. I'm not going to deal with that long because I already don't feel like I deserve that man. I already don't feel like I deserve that woman. I already don't feel like I deserve that good job. That's inadequacy. And so instead of enjoying your life, enjoying where you are, you'll be sitting around anxious. I'm just waiting for the shoe to drop. I'm just waiting for them to mess up. I'm just waiting for them to tell me I'm fired. That's what inadequacy will do. If you don't check it, it'll create all of these little things in the back of your mind that's waiting and making you anxious. Now, the last thing that it'll do Inadequacy will cause you to self-sabotage. What'll happen is you'll say, because I already don't think highly of myself, because I already feel, like I don't have the right substance and I'm not qualified, what I'll do is, before something bad can happen, I'll go ahead and get in front of it and I'll go ahead and mess it up because I don't want anything else bad to happen to me. So let me go ahead and mess that up. Let me go ahead and act a fool so they can leave me, or let me go ahead and miss this payment, or let me go ahead and not do this at work. Let me go ahead and be crazy so that this can mess up so I can sit around and say, well, I thought they were going to do that anyway. No, we're not doing that because we thought they were going to do that anyway. We're doing it because somewhere in the back of our minds, we don't feel like we deserve to be happy. We don't feel like we're really worth it. We don't really feel like we're good enough. And so what we'll do is we'll deflect those feelings onto somebody else, and we will sabotage ourselves because we don't know how to handle those feelings of inadequacy. The other thing that we'll do is inadequacy. People. We will find a way to get from around people. We don't want a lot of people around us when we feel inadequate, because we're saying if I get too close to them, they'll be able to see through me. If I let them up on me close enough, they'll be able to see my neediness. They'll be able to know that I'm really not as good. I talk a good game, but if they get close on me, they'll see that I'm really not who I'm amped up to be. So inadequacy creates isolation. Inadequacy will cause us to push people away. We'll let people think we're stuck up. We'll let people think we don't care about them. We'll let people think we're mean. We'll let people think we're all that. But really, it's because somewhere we've judged ourselves against somebody else, and we don't feel like we are really who we say we are. We feel as though rejection, and I named a couple of things for you all that are just joining on. We feel like because we didn't graduate or get a degree or couldn't have kids, or we still have to depend on our parents, or we have to, accept government assistance, or we don't have a career, or we're not financially stable. We'll let all of those things cause us to feel inadequate, and it'll cause us to act funny towards other people when the issue is really on the inside of us. Now, the last thing I have to talk about, we've talked about why do I feel inadequacy and what that is. Why do I feel inadequate? How do we deal with the demon of inadequacy? We know that we walk around feeling like we weren't good enough. We know that we're walking around feeling like we don't measure up. We know that we're walking around feeling like we don't really have what it takes, even though we're going through the motions. What can we do to counteract these feelings of inadequacy? Number one, we do what I'm doing tonight. We face our truth. Yes, I got pregnant out of wedlock. Yes, I had to drop out of college and go back in later. Yes, I got divorced. That man cheated on me. We have to go back and say, what is our truth? Yes, I was on government assistance. Yes, I had to drive my mama's car. Yes, I had to move back in with my parents at one time. We have to say, what are those things that play in our minds? And instead of waiting for somebody, being afraid that somebody's going to expose us, yes, I did it. Yes, I was responsible. What we have to just say, what is my truth, and face it. That's why I call this whole segment me versus me. Not anybody else, not anybody else's issue. What about me? Let me face my truth. What are those things that I try so hard to hide and be this great person, and I'm so busy trying to push that stuff away that is building up in the back of my mind every day. I can't even have healthy relationships because those things that I keep pushing away is somewhere building up and whispering in my ear, girl, you need to sit down somewhere. Boy, you need to stop doing that. You need to quit fronting. You need to quit because you are not who you say you are. You are not that good. You are not that great. And those feelings, those things will get bigger and bigger if we are not careful. So number one, how do we deal with inadequacy? We face our truth. We tell the truth on ourselves, because why are you hiding it anyway? You know what you did. You know you went after that man. You know you went after that woman. You know you stole the money. You know you cheated. You know you meant to do some things. You know what you got into. So face your truth. Look yourself in the mirror and say, I knew that man was low down when I married him. I knew he was an alcoholic when I got with him. I knew she was a woman, she liked to go after men and she couldn't be faithful when I met her. And I did it anyway. We have to face our truth, because if we go ahead and face our truth, we won't always have to walk around defensive and anxious and isolate ourselves because we're waiting for somebody else to expose us. Now, the next thing that we can do to deal with isolation, we have to see what parts of it were really our fault. A lot of times we deal with inadequacy because we're thinking somebody's going to expose those things that we dealt with. But what we have to do is go ahead and say, hey, but what part of that was my fault? If she cheated, what did I do wrong? If he walked out, why? Let me go back and say, what did I do? Yes, I did make that bad decision. Yes, I do have that habit. No, I'm not good at that. Yeah, I was being a heifer. No, I was being low down. What part of those things in our truth were us? Because if we can face our truth, what happens is we won't be so stuck on somebody else exposing us. And we can deal with those feelings of inadequacy. We can go ahead and recognize, you know what? That was me. I did that. So the third thing, we have to forgive ourselves and release ourselves from that debt. As long as we're walking around holding against ourselves what we did, we will never get rid of feelings of inadequacy. As long as we're going around and we haven't forgiven ourselves, we still have a grudge because we did have that baby out of wedlock. We're still holding it against ourselves that we drove that person away from our lives. As long as we're always angry with ourselves and resentful, we will never release that debt out of our lives, and we will never ever free ourselves from that feeling of inadequacy. So we have to say, wait a minute, and in case you haven't saw it yet, I did post a segment called I Forgive Me, and I gave you some ways, 7 ways that you can forgive yourself and things that you should forgive yourself of. But the third thing is, you know, you have to make mental and physical notes of the things that you have been successful in. You have to say, wait a minute, I'm good at finding all the things that I did wrong, but what about those things that I actually got right? A lot of times we are good at celebrating other people. We are fantastic and somebody does something, oh, we go get them a card, or we go show up at their celebration dinner. We make sure that we post something nice about them on Facebook or on social media. But when it's us, we do not celebrate ourselves. We don't go back and say, well, wait a minute, what about the fact that I did walk away from an abusive relationship? What about the fact that I did managed to raise those children even though I had to raise them on my own? What about the fact that I flunked out but I did get to go back to school? I did go back and earn that degree. What about the fact that I did finally get my credit together? We have to go back and celebrate those things that were positive in our lives and not just dwell on the things that were negative, because as soon as you start celebrating those things that are positive, those feelings of inadequacy start getting smaller and smaller. Now, the next thing you have to do is understand that you are not who you were. Even 5 minutes ago, you weren't even that person because you aged 5 minutes. So who you are right now is not who you are. That child that I was when I got pregnant and had a baby early, that's not who I am right now. That was 20 years ago. This is my 40th year. Some things have changed then. I'm not who I used to be. So holding on to feelings of inadequacy for things that happened way, way long ago is not doing me any good. I'm not who I was. And you have to say to yourself, wait a minute, I'm not still that same person. Maybe when they walked away from me and maybe when they left me, I was crazy and I was insecure and I did have those issues. But the chick I am right now, or the man that I've become right now, I'm not who I was. And when you start announcing that and saying that, those feelings of inadequacy get smaller and smaller. The next thing, and I love to say this, remember that the past has passed. Those things that you did that caused you to feel inadequacy, guess what? They're not your now. Stop reaching back and dragging them from way back in your past, even if your past was last week, and putting them in front of your face right now. Realize that the past is already gone. The past is not even worried about you. Did you know that? Did you know that your past is not sitting around somewhere thinking about you? It is gone. But we decide, let me go dig up those skeletons out of that closet. Let me pick that up and put it in front of me. And we will put our past in front of us to remind ourselves that we flunked. Why? We already have enough issues to deal with. And so instead of creating or doing things that make those feelings of inadequacy get bigger and bigger, we have to find ways to make them diminish and get smaller and smaller. So you have to remember the past has already passed. It's not bothering me, so I'm going to leave it right where it is, in the past. Next, be clear on who you are now. The person that you are right now, on who you used to be, you can be dealing with, hey, But right now I'm strong. Right now I'm resilient. Right now I make better financial choices. Right now I think better. Right now I have a better attitude. Right now my mentality has shifted. I'm not who I used to be. And because I'm looking at this new me, I don't have to be bound to the old me. So perhaps the old me, was a little ignorant at me sometimes. Perhaps the old me might have been a little stuck on stupid. But the new me, this me right now in the present, is not that same person. And so as soon as I start embracing that, those feelings of inadequacy get smaller and smaller. And those feelings of confidence and self-assurance get bigger and bigger. Now, the other thing, and I love to say this, is give yourself a do-over. If you did flunk, if you did mess up, if you didn't finish that, guess what? You're still here. Tomorrow's a new day. You have a chance to begin again. You can give yourself a do-over. So you know what? When the kids were younger, you wanted to party, you wanted to go out, you wanted to do things. Well, guess what? This new you that has some common sense, that's a little bit more stable, can say, wait a minute, I'm not going to walk around feeling inadequate as a mom. I'm going to start doing better things right now and say, wait a minute, who I am right now, this sufficient person I am right now, let me give myself a do-over. Yeah, I messed up that relationship. I cheated on him and I was low down. But the me I am right now, no, I deserve love and I can love in a wholesome, healthy way. Let me give myself a do-over. And the last thing that you can do to fight these feelings of inadequacy is very simple. Counteract those negative thoughts with thoughts of affirmation. You have to give yourself words of affirmation. And it's not easy to do, because what happens is when we look in the mirror, the first thing we want to say is, oh, I don't like the way I look. Oh, I don't like the way I talk. Oh, I don't like my job. I don't like where I am in life. This could be better. I could be doing this. But you have to counteract those feelings of inadequacy by saying, wait a minute. You know what? I'm strong. I had a rough childhood, but I made it out of it. You know what? I saw some of my family members go through something that I actually made it out of. I am strong. You know what? Maybe I didn't finish school with everybody else, but I made a decision to go back and get some skills. Even if I went back and got a degree, even if I went back and got certification, I went back and did something better. Let me say something positive about me. Again, we're good at going on people's Facebook posts and saying great things about them and buying them a card when they graduate. But how often do we sit up and look at ourselves and say, you know what, chick? Today, I need to tell you, you are pretty cute. You know what, guy? You might not be the richest person, but you're on your way. You have been making some financially sound decisions. You know what? I'm looking at those kids, and for a whole week, they didn't get in trouble. You might be getting better. You start finding ways to give yourself affirmations. You have to tell yourself, listen, I'm strong. Because every day when the things are against me, I still manage to get up, put my clothes on, and show up. Every day, I'm getting more and more powerful. Yeah, I'm needy and I don't like being alone and I'm holding on to bad relationships. But one day I'm going to get to a point where I can walk away and realize that I can still make it. Yeah, I might have messed up with money in the past, but you know what? I'm budgeting. I'm looking at things. I'm putting my future in perspective. I am getting better about me. And you will realize and you will look around and see that when you start speaking positive affirmations to yourself, those feelings of inadequacy are going to get smaller and smaller. I'm Elisa LaShell. Thank you guys so much. For the next 5 days, I'll be dealing with 5 issues, and it's going to be talking about me versus me. You can't fix what you don't face. And tonight, we dealt with inadequacy. Do me a favor, if you joined late, share this video if it blessed you, if it touched you in some way. Listen, let me know. Shoot me a text, put a post up, inbox me, say something and let me know. Or if there is an issue that you say, listen, here's one of those secret struggles that I'm not strong enough to talk about. But listen, you're being bold. You talk about this. Let me know what that is, because I want to help the people and empower. As I'm empowering myself, I'm hoping to empower others. There's a scripture in the Bible that says we're overcome by the word of our testimony. And once we start saying it, we'll realize that we are better than we were. And guess what? Better things are ahead. So thank you guys for joining me. I hope you guys enjoy it. And again, I'm Elisa LaShell. If you haven't followed me on social media, I'm on Instagram, I'm on Facebook, I'm on Twitter, I'm on Periscope. Join me, and I hope to see you guys again soon. Thank you.